Yo, Eduardo, the man. So we're gonna jump into it. If there's questions, we can get into it. Of course, we're just coming into this space. If it's your first time here, all I would like you to focus upon is centering in the heart space, centering in that sensation or that knowing that you are, that you exist, that very foundational confidence. That's really what we're looking for. And everything that we're doing outward in the world, in everyday life, we're looking to experience a certain sense of confidence in oneself, clarity, certainty, safety. All of these really just, the deeper in which one comes to the center point of perception, naturally, all words really mean the same thing. When it comes to love, awareness, confidence, certainty, because it's all felt in the same way. And this is a pointer to the core essence, the core teaching of if there's anything, a beautiful exercise that was a powerful practice on my path was, if there is anything in which ever stands out in your experience inwardly. So inwardly, if there's anything in which stands out, be it something in which is really, pulling you really want to, jump on it and run to it. And on the other end, something you're really pushing against, something that's, causing some resistance or something. If there's anything in which stands out, this is, of course, something in which one's attention is being placed on that for a specific reason. It's standing out for a reason, right? It desires your attention. And just by the attention alone, just by awareness alone, one can come to the clear recognition of what it actually is rather than what it appears to be. And generally what it appears to be is something in which holds something about it either can take away love or add love. So in the nature of coming into a depth of equality, we're looking inwardly simply to find and to even out the experience. So nothing in particular stands out. And so in the non-duality scene, a core teaching by many teachers and many people throw this term or this phrase around, which is nothing has ever happened. And what they're pointing to in a sense, at least for someone just talking about it intellectually, they're pointing to the idea that, because everything's an illusion, nothing actually ever has happened because everything is just false. And of course, naturally, if one hasn't actually directly experienced this is quite confusing. It's probably one of the most confusing teachings. However, in the place in which you come to in your meditations, when you just come to that place where there is no mind, there's nothing moving, it is pure silence. For that moment, there is a reality to that statement that nothing has ever happened, because there's no ideas of past or future there. And because there's no ideas of past or future, this recognition, this truth emerges. And this truth can emerge to a point in which it sticks and it is constant, where nothing ever actually happens because nothing stands out. And if nothing stands out, then there's no ideas within mind that are holding to anything, because everything is made up of the same singular source. So of course, nothing is supposed to stand out. Right? So let's flow with this. I'm just opening with that. If there's questions, if there's comments on your path at this time, then you can bring those forth. I mean, you guys know the drill. We flow with this as it's available, as things are arising for everyone on the call. And outside of that, if something spontaneously arises, then arises. If not, then we just, sit in some silence. And the beauty of that is that maybe for some of you, that silence is the most actual productive aspect of your day, the most transformative element of your day, because that's truly what it is that we're desiring. It's the reason why so many love to go to sleep at night, to experience the depth of the deep, dark sleep where mind is shut off and the mind is not moving. And that's why when you have that deep, dark delta sleep, it is so fulfilling. It is so deeply fulfilling because the mind is no longer there for that period of time as you're sleeping. So again, if you're here, just say hello. Lawrence, much love to you. And if there's questions, then let's just flow with that. I mean, I have nothing else. At least what's authentic to me in this time is I have very little to teach. I feel not called to teach anything in particular, just to hold space for you and for whatever needs to arise. So if that's valuable to you, that's valuable to you. If you're looking for a specific teaching on the definition of freedom and what that means and all this, then ask. I would like to know. Otherwise, join our transmission on Sunday, and you may get the picture as to why it is that I'm just called in the space, and really just seeing through a lot of the illusions within the whole New Age and spiritual seeking and all of it. It can end today if you like it, if you desire it to. It doesn't need to go on for years. It doesn't require to read 100 more books. You don't need to do a bunch of more retreats and workshops. It could end today if one truly desires it to be so. And that's the gift in which this transmission is going to be on Sunday. And it's important also that it's not for the mind to tell you when it's over. You will know when it's over completely and totally. Seeking will end. The inward notion of seeking will end. And what will emerge is a depth of freedom that you can't describe. There's no words can describe it. But it must be known. So I'm not dancing around something saying that, it needs to be so easy, because surely it will still be a certain level of difficulty. However, it'll just happen in a much faster way. Question. Okay, your perspective on phrases like, I was experiencing deep meditation by my solitude in the last few days, a week or so. And when my girlfriend came back, I'm experiencing more spontaneity, but more contractions. And that things you talked about, like being magnetized to some things, actions, activities in my life, depends on that. Okay. So I'm just going to focus on this last portion in the question, which I find is important, which is, but I still have the background of enlightenment, and I feel clear about this confusion. I want to know if you think it's cool to do this and pass through these phases. So what's of the highest importance is that my opinion on whether or not what's authentically real for you is okay or not, in essence, doesn't matter. And I'll tell you why. The element of authentic living, the element of what's authentically real in this moment is your eternal guru. So the importance of a guru or a teacher is not to tell you what to do or not to, other than specific techniques and methods. It is simply to continue to point you to that place in which already knows. And the place in which already knows as to what I'm pointing to is that pure place of silence, that pure awareness in which cannot be spoken, in which cannot be understood by mind. And thus, it is not an aspect within mind. And of course, then it cannot play within mind to determine what's good or not so good, or what's right and what's wrong, or to do this or to do that. And so to clarify this and to really dive into this, that pure place of silence is okay already. It's perfect and whole already. In this space where you connect with that pure essence of silence here in this moment, as we all are, as we come into that pure essence of silence, that pure space of awareness, this place is okay and perfect just as it is. So no matter what's happening in your life, no matter what's happening today, no matter what just happened just a few minutes ago, the moment and as you're coming to this, instantaneously, everything is dissolving. Whether you should do this or should do that, whether you should be making this happen or not happen, whether you're on the path or not on the path, it is all dissolved. You are only left with this pure essence of silence. No words can touch it. So from this place, we've just dissolved the confusion. We've dissolved the question. We dissolved everything, not by answering it through, an exact protocol as to what you should do in a certain situation or how things should unfold, but simply by returning you to the paradoxical viewpoint in which sees both sides of the coin. Anytime in which we're deciding between two things and we return to this place, we see the balance and the gray area in which emerges, which presents us with the clarity that it's usually both. It's a bit of both. It's continuing to sincerely practice, to sincerely come to that pure place of awareness while still allowing and surrendering to the natural, authentic expression of mind that's needing to exhaust itself further, to burn its karmic energy further. You see? So in essence, it's always simultaneously happening in both ways, where as we continue to abide in that pure place of that pure essence, the pure source, the pure awareness, we paradoxically are giving way to whatever habits, good or bad, that want to present themselves, whatever is arising. and we're not questioning it, because we are being so authentic in our space to know that whatever is here is here, and I can see through the illusion of its appearance because I am seeing from that pure place of awareness. You see, so we're perpetually bringing ourselves back to the master's seat, knowing that no matter what's arising, we're the ones in which are perceiving it. So whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. It's being perceived, thus it's a dream. So in essence, the advanced seeker, which is not really so advanced at all, we're just returning to the natural essence, but the advanced seeker is one who is not looking to improve the dream, but rather step out of the dream altogether. Right? And this doesn't mean leave the body or all these other terms. It simply means to find the vantage point in which recognizes only truth and doesn't see lesser dreams or greater dreams, it sees it all just as a dream and recognizes the complete totality of it as a dream, and thus can play in the dream without any judgment at all about what's arising. It's the reason why many masters have had bad habits. They slept with their disciples, they smoked cigarettes, they swore, they were assholes, and they were also very loving, and they did great humanitarian efforts. But there's inwardly for them, there's no judgment. Right? And from this seeing here, there is no judgment. And from the depth of your seeing and where you are and residing as the self, there is no judgment. It doesn't matter. Right? The universe is a very, it doesn't play the game of good and bad, Because if the sun just exploded or just, exploded into its supernova state and burned up every planet in the solar system and killed 8 billion people, it wouldn't matter. And the sun doesn't give a shit. Right? And so it's important for us to come to the recognition of when we're getting caught up into the details, of specifics of, should I do this or that? Or, we know instantly we're involving ourselves. We're just in the confusion of mind, and we can play in that without the confusion. It's not to say not to be detailed. It's to say not to be detailed with the stress of details. You see, so the essence of continuing to come back to that pure place and to know that place and to continue to desire to only know that place from this vantage point, then, you're killing an infinite amount of birds with one stone. This is why, realization, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, is the single most desire of every being on the planet. And it is the foundation by which the new world will be created. We're not going to create no new world without individuals and beings realizing themselves, their true nature first. It doesn't matter what you desire to create in your experience. That has to come first. And this is why you're here. Okay. Yes, so Eduardo's asking now, so that the pure place for it to shine bright, a mind needs to clear its karmic energy, and all we do is nothing, or we just be, right? We just be silent, and the karmic energy will burn itself. So in essence, this is true. Just be is the supreme teaching of a complete surrender. Now, the statement, I am that I am, which is the practice of being aware of awareness, that's what the statement points to. I am that I am is the practice of being aware of awareness. So first, on the seeking quest, we're aware of thoughts, feelings, sensations. Then we recognize there's actually something, there's that pure place in which is observing all of this. So now, after trying to play into the intellectualizing and analysis of my dreams and spirit animals and synchronicities and all the shit that's happening, I'm no longer interested in any of that. I'm only interested in the place in which is perceiving all of this and the source by which all of this appears. Thus, this is the practice of being aware of awareness. So it is your natural state. I am that I am, just be. But it's also initially a practice by mind. And it is the practice of mind destroying itself. So mind doesn't know this, but it's actually killing itself by practicing this. It's so funny. That's why it's resisted. That's why for many will hear this message and will still go out and read 1 million more books and think they need to do 100 million more hours of practice and all this, instead of practicing the only practice which really matters and all practices are leading up to and supporting. So all is well. It is not to say we don't do these things. It's to say, though, if you're sincerely desiring truth, you will be pointed to this. Now, the most beautiful description of this that I've come onto, and what you're saying here, Eduardo, was from a teacher named Sri Sumero, who he's on Facebook. Some of you may have had him. He's a brilliant writer. And he spoke about the essence of being undone, like a knot, right? When we are undoing a knot, there needs to be an anchor point in which we're holding, and then we're pulling at the knot, and the knot is undoing itself. It's being undone. That anchor point is that practice of awareness, being aware of itself, just continuing to return to that pure essence of awareness. Being undone is the pulling. It's the natural exhaustion of mind that wants to keep venturing out into things in which the self knows it doesn't care to go into, but it does so just based on karmic push, karmic pull, karmic energy. And that naturally undoes itself over and over and over and over and over. So it's not that you're becoming more aware, it's that the mind is just dissipating itself, because you cannot become more aware. It's binary. It's either you're aware or you're not. The idea of expanding your awareness or these things, this is the illusion of the dream. It seems that way to mind, but that's not what's actually occurring. Awareness always just is. Mind is just dissipating itself, and one is seeing clearly that, okay, I am that I am. You see? Now I'm speaking all of this, and this is the singular practice. Now, again, the transmission, as I've been speaking about often, as we do in these calls, as what's going to be done on Sunday, which is a lot more specific, like a spiritual surgery, this, in a sense, speeds up all of that to an nth degree. So if there's questions on that, we can get into, but this is all I have to say about that. Yes, in essence, the awareness is that anchor point, because awareness is what you are, right? So if you just have a glimpse of that, that is what really anchors everything. And that's what gives way to a further expediting nature of the karmic clearing. This is why it seems like things are speeding up, things are purifying, because that's what's occurring, is the anchor point is becoming stronger, right? Your knowing is deepening. So within relativity, it appears that that's what's occurring. So your knowing is deepening, awareness is becoming more expanded, et cetera, et cetera. And the knot is being undone. All your karmic energies, your bad habits, all of it, it's being undone. It's being purified, right? And when I say purified, the attachment to it is being purified. Not necessarily the habit just dissipates and completely goes away. The habits may still remain. It's just that there's no judgment on that habit any longer. Thus, it doesn't affect you in the same way it used to. So I hope that covers it. So just reflect with me if that was okay for you. Makes perfect sense. Okay, perfect. And then Lawrence had said, do we ever get to a point where we get to that pure place and remain conscious of it? Yes. Yes, in simplicity. I can speak from my path in particular. I just wrote a 30-page document on the entire process that I went through with receiving transmission from Ramaji, which we'll be doing on Sunday, and practicing many of the non-dual methods and techniques that are available everywhere. Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Muji, Lakshmana Swami, Sri Sumero, Bentino also has some great stuff. There's many teachers speaking the same language. It all comes back to the singular practice of I am that I am, right? That being aware of awareness alone and intensifying your degree of desire for truth. The only reason I was gifted the gift of coming to Ramaji and experiencing his transmission, similar to the transmission which I experienced from Yogidas Siddhanath Guranath, the Himalayan master, yogic Kriya master, is they're very similar, they're very different at the same time, is just the degree in which I desire to know truth. I was willing to die for it. I gave up everything, I renunciated everything to know truth. So it doesn't mean that that's the case. I was very extreme, right? And you're coming here in the space and you're hearing this message because you desire to know it. So the desire to know truth and the willingness in simplicity, that is the only thing in which really matters, because then you will be gifted what you need to come to the final end, because there is an end. It doesn't mean the end of human experience and expression. If anything, it's the beginning, the true beginning to eternity. So the idea of beginning and end is dissolved. But what's important to understand is that there is an end to seeking. There is an end to seeking. And it's very subtle. It's so not what the mind thinks it is, but yet it's everything in which you could desire. And so it's recognizing that you're already there. This is already a place in which you reside. And as you receive transmission, as you do the practice, that's all that is revealed. This is it. This natural state, this natural self, this natural life. I've never actually left it. It's always just been this. Right? The cold coffee, the dog that's shitting everywhere, the bank account that's great or not so great, the wife that loves you or doesn't, the grocery store that you got to go pick up the groceries every Sunday. You know, everything is it. It's exactly what it is that you've been desiring. It's right in this very moment, but it needs to be seen, needs to be known. So we persevere until that's the case, and you will know, right? So I've been speaking about I've been speaking about the essence of the LOCs, the numbering system for consciousness, and I've been getting flack from it. But the essence of it is that when you actually ascend to these higher I wouldn't say higher, but balanced LOC states or stages, that you don't care for it any longer. But it's a beautiful tool. Right? You don't, it doesn't matter to you, of course, because you're experiencing directly the knowing of the self. So the number is only just a confirmation. Right? And I've spoken the same way before about not teaching until your master confirms it. This is a typical ancient practice in which instead of doing a 3-week yoga teacher training course and thinking you're a master yoga teacher, you spend 20 years with the master and then he confirms it for you. But recognize that the confirmation of an outer master only comes when you know it to be true yourself. So people are triggered by these statements because they're not knowing. If they knew it, they wouldn't be triggered. Right? If they knew it deeply within, they wouldn't care if they needed a master or not. They would know that the master is a reflection of themselves, and they are that already. So it's a I wouldn't say it's a radical approach in which in what I'm presenting here and what we're speaking of with Ramaji and all of that. And it's not to say this is the only way, because there's many other people who've reached it without rasa transmission or LOC. But it's to know that the synchronicities or the similarities between them will always be the same. I am that I am is the supreme teaching. Love everything that arises, which is the tantric method in many ways. Receiving the transmission of grace, whether by way of a master or from direct source itself. These are the only teachings. The entirety of all religion, all spirituality, all practices, these are the only teachings. Any teacher who says he has some new thing, it's not new. Rasa and the transmission of Ramaji is not new. It just got dissolved because no one could transmit the power of that in the times we have been in. Right now it's reemerging, but it's not new. Nothing is ever new. Right? LOC, quantifiable methods of metrics of levels of consciousness is not anything different than what every spiritual system has described. States of samadhi, bliss states in the Buddhist tradition, the hero's journey, the stages of the hero's journey, the stages of Advaita. These are all descriptions of qualitative nature. Know this. I don't know. I missed your piece on Bentino, Eduardo, so clarify that for me. Please repeat, what did you say were the primary teaching? Well, I mean, the singular primary teaching is the word of God, which in Hinduism is Om. In the Jewish tradition is Yahweh Vave, which is YHWH. There's many other forms of the word, right? These are the singular vibrational descriptions. Michael Langford, which was one of the writers of one of the books I recommended in my recent video about the top spiritual books, he describes as a description of the one being infinite, eternal awareness, or infinite awareness, eternal love, bliss, which is, I find, one of the more accurate English descriptions, right? So these are pointers to that truth. Just by repeating infinite awareness, eternal love, bliss, and actually feeling into that, if you're doing it with a certain level, degree of intensity, you will arrive. Now, the statement, sumera iru, or just be, which is similar to I am that I am, which has been spoken by many teachers, specifically in the Bible, this is the supreme teaching. Because I am that I am is pointing to the practice, the seated, meditative, inward practice of awareness, aware of itself. Bringing awareness inwards to be aware of itself, not aware of any other object, merging of subject-object. There is no awareness of an object. Awareness is only aware of itself. And thus we can see just by that description, that's not actually what's occurring. It's just awareness is. But of course, from the mind's viewpoint as a technique, there needs to be something happening. So awareness is aware of itself, moving inwards to itself, turning 180 degrees, if we want to describe it like that. Now, the outward expression to that is a complete unconditional love, which comes down really to the golden rule: treat another as you would like to be treated. In essence, this is the teaching of just simply loving everything that arises, or in a more specific light, resolving any emotional resistance to anything that occurs in your inner space. And inner outer doesn't really matter, right? It's just whatever arises in your experience, there's a dissolution of that, which is only done by returning to awareness, being aware of itself. So we're only utilizing this description as a means to soothe the mind who asks, well, what do I do in my day-to-day life, right? And for someone who's new at the practice of just simply being aware of the center point of awareness, the source point of awareness, then if you're doing that while you're driving, maybe that's more difficult, and I wouldn't recommend that, right? So that's why we do that with our eyes closed. That's the inward self-inquiry. This is the core essence of pointings of non-duality of Ramana Maharshi. And then the tantric view, or the opening to loving everything, is that devotional practice of completely surrendering yourself into the flaming fire of emotional experience, of the human experience. This is in the New Age tradition, we call this the embodiment teachings, right? And there's a whole new thing of embodiment teachings, but it's nothing new. The only reason there's a whole movement about embodiment teachings is because the majority of the New Age smoked too much and did too much psychedelics and too much intense breathing exercises and renunciating everything. And they moved all their energies to the higher sphere, and thus they seemingly need to come back down. And then it's passed off as this new embodiment teaching. There is no new embodiment teaching. It's just that the New Age missed the point. The majority, for the singular reason that the majority were not under the wing of a true master. They were learning it from others who are not there yet. And this is what occurred. And it's a great learning experience, of course. And we're to be, of course, grateful for that. And in the same light, we see that now, well, we come to one who is actually there. We learn from one who's actually there, so that we can practice what actually matters, instead of getting confused in our own path, delaying realization and glamorizing it, thinking it's some grand thing when it's your very nature. See? Yes, you're welcome. And yes, you're welcome, Lawrence, as well. It's not complex. It'll only be communicated as complex for one who doesn't know. And I've been guilty of this as well. For many in the social media scene, they're teaching before they arrive. It's just simple. Most are teaching before they actually arrive, and thus they're teaching to themselves concepts they don't fully yet understand, and that's why it's complex. And it's beautiful. It's the new time of teaching. It's that feminine aspect where you learn by teaching, but at the same time too, you also confuse yourself and others by doing that too. So it's for all to learn, as they are. And my only pointer is that any teacher who makes it very complex is not there yet. It's just as simple as that. If it's not complex, it's not anything. I may be using a lot of words here, but they're very simple words, and they're just to continue to comfort you in that space of simplicity. It doesn't mean it's not difficult. It's surely difficult. So don't take this as there's not an effort that's required, but even still, in these times, it's a very loving feminine time. And if you're willing to surrender, and this is why the topic of worthiness and these things arise for many, is because the worthiness in which is required to experience the divine infinite love of the Divine Mother is supreme. Right? One surely must surrender themselves, and if not, they'll just be surrendered by the love of the Divine Mother. Because the entirety of everything is just Divine Mother. You are the source, that pure awareness, which is the masculine, but anything in which is ever experienced, so anything within mind, is the Divine Mother. Right? So it's to be humble, to surrender yourself to the love in which is present, to the love in which is here. And in essence, that is the effortless path. That is the effortless path. But for the mind, it takes quite a lot of effort. So everything is paradoxical. Nothing is ever left out. It's not either or. It's not this or that. It's always both. And just rest with that. So if there's more questions, let's keep them flowing. I'm enjoying this. Some great questions tonight. And of course, if you haven't registered for Sunday, it's at 2 p.m. We're doing the transmission with Ramaji. I'd highly recommend. You feel it with me. It will be experienced here. We'll do it at the end. It's just a bit different, the rasa, because I haven't fully dived into that process. But the transmission from anyone who you feel it off. I mean, it doesn't really matter. The only litmus test of anyone you're listening to is, do they provide you with a direct experience of truth? That's it. And you learn from them as long as that's the case, and then when it's not the case, you naturally will move on. Okay. But if one is truly abiding there, you won't have to move on. It will end for you. Yes, beautiful, Carol. It's a great point. Simplify it. Right? And it's important. It's to have compassion with ourselves. The nature of the mind is not simple, so it needs time for it to simplify. So one of the sources of frustration for many on the path is that they understand so deeply the simplicity, and it makes so much sense when you're here and you're experiencing this, and it's all there, and then you move out, and then the mind moves again, and we can see very naturally, very instantly, that the anchor point of satsang, of the transmission of truth, is so vital. And it doesn't mean you need to do this for 20 years. It could happen in a very short period of time, but it's to know how vital that is. It's to know that energy is so important, because that's your anchor point until you know your anchor point. Right? You already know it, but it's going to expedite things. It's going to speed things up. So you're not protected when you go back out. You're protected to the degree in which you've practiced, but as you go out, your mind will move. Let it. You really don't have control over it. We must be humble ourselves to know this. And there is truth to the notion that there is karmic energy in which you cannot change. There's a lot of karmic energy in which you can, but there's certain karmic energy in which you can't. And this is very apparent in the nature of how you look, the hair color, your body type, and various genetics, amongst various habits and tendencies and things of this nature. Yes, you can surely change many things, but there's certain things that you cannot. And this is what we surrender to, is the nature of the playing out of karmic energy. This is what keeps order in the universe, is karma. It keeps order in the universe, right? And so it's a gift. Know it as a gift. Clear the rest, right? And the beauty of realization is that it clears out the karmic energy of bondage, and it expands the karmic energy of joy and enjoyment. And that's specifically a teaching from Ramana Maharshi, who very specifically went into that. So the idea that karma just is all cleared, well, that doesn't make any sense, because the idea of relativity, the idea of experience, is that karmic energy still exists. It's just that the karmic energy is now just simply for enjoyment. Your natal chart, your astrology chart it will be highlighted. The aspects of joy will be highlighted, and your detrimental energies will surely be cleansed to a very profound degree. Can you elaborate on your day-to-day and what transcends it for you? Are you directly connected to various energies? My days are very simple. As much as I went into this at the beginning of today, which was a beautiful practice, is inwardly meditating and contemplating on what stands out for you, if there's anything in which stands out for you. And generally, in my experience, because there's nothing really there, there's nobody grabbing a hold of anything. All that really happens is the spontaneous moment. It's a fresh new moment. So it doesn't mean that I don't have a headache or I don't know, experience some anxiety or bliss or whatever. Things will fluctuate, but very little, to be honest. And to be more specific, nothing stands out. So this is the only thing in which matters, this moment, this now. I could have had a million things happen today, but nothing stands out. And it's not to say that it wasn't enjoyable or not enjoyable. It's to say that there's nothing more important than just this. And it's a perpetual creation and destruction that's not within time. So the day-to-day looks very simple. Sure, I live a very free life. I'm blessed to be an entrepreneur and to support people in this space and to work with clients and do retreats and do all these things in which I'm not confined to rules of a boss or any of these types of things. But the life is fairly natural, right? It's fairly natural, and so. But inwardly, there's no fishnet that takes ownership over everything. Thus, the statement "nothing has ever happened" is very true from this vantage point. In essence, that it is only ever a new creation and a new destruction. The moment before is destroyed, the next moment is created, and it's perpetually occurring in that light. And so, one of the things I've been outlining in the description of the full ascent through the level of consciousness stages, through the work with Ramaji and the transmission. So I outlined all of the stages in which I went through. And also at the end, I very clearly talked about the post-realization conversation, which is very rare, obviously, because now this is a new thing we're having to come into. It is what happens post-realization. And there's still karmic energy, which is clearing, which Ramaji has been very specific with me on. But in my space, a lot of that has been cleared. So it's really the true essence of freedom, as this call has been titled. Freedom is your birthright, where the true essence of freedom has emerged in the sense that the entirety of the universe is at your fingertips, yet you desire nothing from it in particular. They're simply just a natural expression into your nature. So it's not that anything really changed before of what I did before versus after. It's that the inner statelessness is what is the constant, that stateless truth. So like I mentioned, nothing stands out. More specifically, nothing is pushed away, nothing is pulled. There's no teaching in which I think is supreme or not supreme. I speak of I am that I am as the supreme teaching, but any other teaching has that within it at its core, right? So of course I can point you to what is most efficient, but if you still want to jump into ayahuasca and shaman ceremonies, do all that, then that's also the truth for you as well, because it is all truth. It is all, it all just is. There's nothing wrong with anything. And so, there's a certain beauty to it, and it is a constant celebration, because all I can be is in deep gratitude to this gift. It's a gift. That is all it is. I am not special. I'm not glamorous. There's nothing special about my experience. I mentioned what that special nature was, which is a willingness to die for truth. This was the only special nature, if we want to call it that, a willingness to die for truth. So, as I mentioned, anyone can be that willing, right? So it is the age of true integrity when it comes to enlightenment, realization, all of this, and that's another key element to the nature of no mind, the nature of the end of seeking, which is there is no more ideas about anything. So the idea of spirituality versus materiality, non-duality, duality, I utilize the words to point, but inwardly there is not that experience of the separation of those. And for you and all of you to come into this and to know this is to always inquire to anything in which stands out, to anything in which looks better than or less than, or this more separate than this. Inquire to those words. Words are beautiful tools in the nature of self-inquiry, is to inquire to what do these words mean to you? Do they actually have any meaning? Do they have the meaning you think they do? And of course, words come in groups. So if it's a phrase or a belief, what is this belief? Right? Does it have any true validity? Is it real in any sense of the word real? And that, in essence, is realization, is to see through everything and to know that there's nothing other than just the self, the singular self, in which is peaceful, blissful, loving, but yet beyond all of that altogether, it cannot be spoken. Right? So I describe it as best I can around it, but of course it must be directly known and experienced. But a way in which we can support ourselves to come to this in a more rapid light is to destroy all of the images we have about what anything I just said and anything you think it is. Because it's not any of those things, right? It's what you know it is. It's what you directly experienced as what it is, because you've had glimpses of it. Because it's you. How could you not? So, we come to this in our practice over and over and over, and the transmission just continues and supports us. As I said, it has been a gift that's been granted to me. It's been a gift, and it's a gift that is available to anyone. And it's just to be a destroyer of the glamour around it, and that's what really reveals it. Is we destroy the glamour around it, and then glamour is revealed. True glamour is revealed. In this laptop, in this little scratch here, and in my one long nail compared to the rest. There's a glamour in everything, because it is yourself, and you love it as if it was yourself. You know it to be yourself. So all I can say and speak from this place, but and who knows what will occur. Someone asked me, I think it was Chris, I don't know if he's still here. He asked me, are you going to reincarnate? Are you going to come back? I don't know. The only thing in which I know is I don't know anything. And so it's the only do not know. You're perpetually in that space of I don't know, and that's the true freedom. There's no more spiritual cloak of knowledge and all of these things. There's none of that, and you can play with in all of it, but there's nothing to hold on to any of it. So you may activate superpowers, you may have a city, you may have a psychic precognition, but it's destroyed and let go of and completely forgotten in the next moment. Because everything is, if you are everything, then, well, you need to hold on to nothing. You can access it at any point. You're like Google. So this is the truth. You can learn anything, you can be anything, you're free. And yet, you're not caring to be so as free as what the mind had originally thought what freedom was. It's like your parents telling you to not do something, and that's why you want to do something. And then when they let you do it, it's like, nah, all right, I'm okay here. So this is my long-winded answer to such simplicity, but I'm having fun with this. I enjoy talking, as you can imagine. So of course, if there's any more questions, then let's continue. Share this video too. This has been a really beautiful session. I really appreciate all of you being here. I think there's another question so if you're watching from somewhere else, click on the video to watch it directly, so you're not commenting on the shared post. Okay, I see it now, Chris. Thanks. But yeah, if there's any more questions, then let's continue. It's a Q&A, It's been a good Q&A. I've been really enjoying this today. And if you're just coming in, welcome. Say hello. Join us on Sunday. I'm going to keep saying it. I'm excited. And if you are coming in and you just came in, I highly recommend to rewatch this. Even if you're here and you've been here the whole time, there's a lot of very beautiful questions that I'd recommend to rewatch and just sink into the same message over and over. It's repetitive. It's important to be repetitive with this because it's simple. So we just need to be repetitive and consistent in that repetition, and you'll get it. I've said this many times before in our retreats. And some, with some of my one-on-one clients and stuff like that, if you want to call them clients, more so friends. what we're speaking of here when it comes to, like we've mentioned today, the supreme teaching, I am that I am. I am that I am. That's spoken by God to Jesus or whatever in the Bible. I'm not much on religion, to be honest, so I just take what I need and ditch the rest. But I am that I am. It's the supreme teaching because it reflects the singular practice in which all true masters, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, Moses, all of them, all pointed to, which was be aware of awareness. Simply rest as the I am, rest as yourself, as I am, and to be aware of that. That's really what it means. This teaching, which also in more modern times is called self-inquiry, or not so modern, the core teaching of Advaita Vedanta, which is non-duality. This teaching is the secret of all secrets. It is the supreme secret. So we speak of things like Ark of the Covenant and Philosopher's Stone and the Holy Grail and the burning bush and the soma, which is a certain mix of mushroom and all this. These are all like kind of the folklore around what is the singular truth. What is that source? What is that secret little golden key? This is the secret of all secrets. And this is not my secret. It's not anyone's secret. It's the self secret. It is the singular secret in which all know intuitively. You already know it by, if I were to ask you the question, do you know that you exist? Do you exist? The answer is yes. Yes, I exist. But we have to inquire to the source, to that knowing of existence. Yes, I exist, but what was the knowing just before that answer of yes? It is the singular knowing in which is the only thing you know for certain. You're a little bit sure, or a little bit certain, or kind of certain about a million other things, but the only thing you know for certain is that you exist. And there's a singular knowing of truth. This is the supreme secret. It is what, how else do you hide a secret in the best way? It's to hide it in plain sight. It is the nature of how the entire planet has been controlled for thousands of years. It is the entire nature of how the mind is manipulated and controlled in so many ways by our society and by media and all that. It is hidden in plain sight. And so there is nowhere to look other than right in this message. And I've outlined the top books in which just talk about this golden nugget. And if you were to read any more spiritual books in your path, I would recommend anything in that list or anything around that, those topics. I've missed some. I haven't read all the books, but anything that reflects the core message of non-duality, the core message of what we're speaking of here. This is the secret of all secrets. So you have been looking, you have looked for many lifetimes, you have been doing this for how many years, whatever, you have found it. So you've done the work. Now, it's the calming down, it's the practicing, it's the simplifying, it's the releasing of the rest and coming to this and knowing this. You wouldn't be here otherwise. Whoever's on the call, the 6, 7, whatever amount of people have been on this call, you're here for a reason. So again, if there's any questions, let's open up for this last, little bit, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We'll go through a longer, energetic flow. I mean, we're all here and feeling it now in this space. Of course, I'd recommend rewatching this. As I said, this has been a really beautiful session. And if there's no questions in the next few minutes, we'll just jump into that deep transmission flow meditation. And we'll abide in that peace. Okay, well, we'll jump into this meditation, and you'll kind of be open to receive this energy. I'd highly recommend to rewatch this after. And then if you're here and still here, share this video if you haven't, to be appreciated. I think there's a lot of people that can receive value from this. And just get comfy. If there's questions that arise during it, I mean, go ahead, but just kind of just like you're in get a massage or something, you know. Just relax, just sit in your chair. Your eyes can be open or they can be closed. And just come to that place of knowing, that sense of truth, that sense I am, that pure sense of awareness, and just rest there, just abide in this space. And again, just be opening to receive, like you're about to get a massage. Just use this as your space of peace. Alrighty. So we'd like to continue sitting there. Do that. If there's any other questions, then feel free to ask. If you're coming in late, recommended to rewatch and share, which would be another pointer. Now, Josh, I was asked recently, is a coach or healer who is not totally awake doing a disservice to their clients by not pointing them to a fully awake being for rasa? This is a wonderful question because it's very applicable to this present space. In my journey, when I came upon Ramaji and the work, I had already set myself up as a teacher per se and a guide. And I was doing well in the sense of certainly guiding people and supporting them and, you know, helping them with healing and these things. And at the space in which I was at, there are many teachers who were in the same space and much bigger than I, millions of followers, you know, world renowned, and very convinced in their teachings and things. But inwardly, all I knew was that based on my inward integrity, I could not continue doing what I was doing if I had not reached the goal, if you want to call it that, the final goal. And part of this, you could say, was the perfectionist mind and more extreme mind. So, okay, I got to pack up shop, you know, not do any more retreats or, you know, teachings, shut my mouth and just do the work, right? And so that unveiled a certain process in which still continued to bring forth the notion of balance. You know, it's okay. You know, we're all teaching each other. We're all students. We're all evolving. And if you're doing it with the right intention, sure, you know, you may not always be the most accurate in things, but we're all responsible for our own journey. That's why we give no complete responsibility to the teacher. We take the responsibility fully ourselves, and then we receive from the teacher what we need. So we're all responsible. So that was a constant message of, it doesn't need to be so extreme. But as I continually emerged and came to its end, and firstly, it was a clear recognition, as I've outlined in my recent article, which was the truth of the modern guru, which spoke about the transmission of grace being the singular aspect to the importance of being in the presence of a master. The answers to the questions, the techniques, the modalities, these are all to keep the mind busy, to soothe the mind, to get the mind prepared for grace. But anyone who's truly abiding in the true nature of themselves, the true nature, which in the quantitative LLC, which was 1,000, anyone who is there will always be radiating this bliss. The first master I ever came across and was initiated by was Himalayan master Yogiraj Siddhanath Gurunath, who is also calibrated at this, who I intuitively knew 3 years ago at the time, just by way of experiencing his energy, and also to the fact that he only really spoke about his Shaktipat. He answered questions, he told you to practice the Spanabri and the Kriya, but he always just came back to saying, just have devotion in the Guru, which is not him, remember, it's the true nature, and receive the transmission by way of that humility, because humility is the only thing in which is required for one to receive grace, true humility. So in the space in which I'm at, naturally transmission is happening. Anyone who's at the space will naturally always be transmitting. So for anyone who's not there and doesn't know that, they may be convinced that they are at the end of their seeking, or they know truth, they know some elements, and they may know many things, right? So it's for us to recognize that everyone can still have value. If a teacher has value to you, and say you look to see what calibration he's at, he's not there, but there's still much value. It's not to say that we don't take what's there, we don't listen. We take what's needed, and we know deep down inwardly there may be more. And so yes, in a sense, if one knows that there is a method in which is maybe more direct or this or that, it's not to say it's right or wrong for them to do anything. It's to say that if they know of it, then why not? And that's naturally why I'm bringing Ramaji and we're doing it on Sunday. It's naturally why I will eventually do it myself with Rasa. And it's also why the transmission is coming through at this present time, because it may be a different transmission. There's different types of transmission. There's transmission that is silent, like Ramana Maharshi, for instance. He spoke of nothing about Rasa, but yet he was responsible for, let's list it off, Papaji. And we're speaking of in relative terms. Obviously, him as a human is not responsible. It's the grace that pours through. But for a practical measure, Muji, Rupert Spira, Francis Lucille, Papaji, Anandai Ma, Lakshmani Swami, Bentino Massaro, I guess, he's taken, he's utilizing most of that work. Sri Sumeru, who's a, popular dude on YouTube. Basically every non-dualist, in the Western scene, right? Siddhartha, spoke about him often. Nityananda, Paramahansa Nityananda, the very, glamorous guru on YouTube. He also speaks of it. So Ramana Maharshi had a silent transmission of grace that had no aspect of mind, which Rasa does, which is a descending energy from the crown down. But yet he was responsible for this. So it's to say it's not just this. I'm not speaking to just this. And who knows, maybe the silence here is in just the basic transmission here is more potent for you than what Rasa may be for you. So it's to say that if one integrally knows that there is further to go, well, firstly, it has really nothing to do about them sending the student there. It has to do with them, the teacher themselves, humbling themselves to go and to sit at the feet of that master, just to humbly in reverence accept the teaching of that teacher, if they truly know that that's the way. And that's what happened to me, is I was humble enough at the time. I wasn't humble. I resisted it a lot, but I finally just recognized, well, what's the weight, right? And then the gift was given. So in this space, this is a part as to why this is happening. But as I mentioned, it's not extreme. And it doesn't mean that you, as a teacher or whoever, doesn't have value that you can bring in a different way and in a time in which that person needs just from you. So this is another thing, right? People come to you for you, not for the modality, the technique, the method. Right? And this is, of course, why we're building this community here, the Heart Center Leader Program. We're getting forth. If anyone would like to continue to support and to be involved in that community, the link is everywhere. You can go and you can join the platform and all that. We're building that community of the circling component where everyone is to be realized. Really, it's not going to be much longer. I mean, it's going to be longer for everybody as a greater term, but at least, the community we're creating, these are people who are maybe more advanced. They've been seeking for some time. And when I say advanced, that generally is equal to the level of humility. So advanced is not anywhere greater than, it's the more advanced you are in your seeking, the more humble you become. Right? And so this is what I can say to that, and for me on my path, there was a certain level of integrity where I knew if there was something that was better, well, firstly, I need to jump into that and I need to experience it for myself to know it to be true, to experience it directly. That's why I just wrote my 30-page write-up on the entirety of that journey. And if you guys want to get access to that, let me know. But that, that's really what it comes down to, because in essence, teaching, there's no teaching. There's no teacher student here. I'm expressing, I'm witnessing a question arise. I'm witnessing an answer. It's not me here sitting teaching. This is why it's only really question and answer, because otherwise I have nothing really to say. Right? Because the truth has been realized. So it's now it's okay. Service to those who, may are not seeing this or are a bit late or whatever. But it's so simple. And so it's a very revolutionary time we're in, where a lot of the old rules, they worked and they were applicable for their time, and now they're transcending to something, far different. And as I mentioned, there are also individuals at LOC 1000 or in their true complete realization, you can feel it off them, who don't know any other method other than to sit in satsang for 15 years or to just talk or to do all their techniques. It's the nature of what they were brought up in. And the path in which they took, right? So nothing is better or worse than everything. The only thing that matters is, where are you? Where are you? And if you know of something that is going to get you there, it's faster, it's more efficient, it's more powerful, it's more resonant to you, then that's where you were to go, right? So any teacher who does know of that, there's only one place to go, and your students, if you want to call them students, they will go with you there if that's what's for them, and if not, they will go somewhere else. So it's certainly a very interesting topic. I'm really grateful you asked that question, because I something I've certainly experienced. So if there's any other questions, I mean, I'm not running out of here. I'm going to link, though, firstly, Sunday, the first notion. I'm going to link a couple of things so everyone can have access to this and they can jump in as they please. Just going to link Sunday if you're not here. There will be a recording. Obviously, the rasa is generally much more powerful if you're there, but it still will be there. You'll still be able to connect with it. And then the Heart Center Leader Program, which is really just a group of next level dudes and dudettes that are going to be. I've never used that. I hardly ever use that term. I don't know why I use it. We're just it's truly a community we're creating. I'm bringing in different instructors, different facilitators of different elements to it, because realization occurs. Okay, great. There's still other elements to life and existence. There's entrepreneurship of heart-centered nature. There's the detoxification of the body. There's authentic relating and tantric lovemaking and all the juices of that. There's all kinds of other elements to life. That life just doesn't disappear. So we're creating that community, and so there's some elements to that you guys can jump into. Does validation still feel good after one is fully awake? Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's, there's a certain element to the nature of the dense body that needs to catch up in some sense. So one thing I will say is that if we're speaking in terms of final realization as LOC 1000, as one who knows inwardly there's the depth of seeking has ended, especially if it's just happening, right? It's just happening in recent times. There is a further deepening that occurs, right? So Ramana Maharshi died, when he was 70, and the depth of his silence, the depth of his surrender was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. And he'd been in that place for a very long time, for like 50 plus years, right? So there's a depth of deepening that still occurs, but the seeking inwardly has ended. So you could say that there's a lag time of the body mind that happens. And that lag time is the further purification of the neurological imprints and habitual nature of the body-mind system. And so there's certain aspects, and it's the reason why, when you look at Nisargadatta Maharaj, for instance, if you haven't heard of him, I would check out his book, the Nisargadatta Gita. This is a very, 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 very well put together book. And his teaching was extremely simple, maybe even more simple than Ramana. And they lived at similar times. And he sold cigarettes, he smoked cigarettes, and he died of throat cancer. And many are to say that he was maybe one of the greatest sages that lived in our past 2,000 years. So what's that, right? And it's clearly to see that there is a natural living out of the habitual nature of what the body has taken. So we're recognizing here that your body-mind is a product of the environment. And the human body in the environment requires certain things. And validation or hugs from people or attention is one of those things for the body mind to be in a healthy state. This doesn't mean enlightenment or not enlightenment. This means just a healthy body mind system. As we're evolving as a society and we're seeing that new generations wanting to be healthier, and smoking is like a stupid thing now, or all of it, whatever perspective we have. This is just the natural evolution of consciousness as a whole. It's a natural evolution of humanity. So we could say that if Nisargadatta lived maybe in these times or maybe in 50 years, smoking would not be on the list, because the time in which it was in, the nature of the environment would not pull that out of him. It would not influence his body-mind experience in that way, right? Also recognizing that it may have been 30, 40 years of him not being in that realized state, and then it took him 3 years to realize the nature of truth, and then for the rest of his days he was. That 30 to 40 years, there's a depth of imprint on the body-mind system. So we're coming to the point of singularity where now the relative experience will increase in its perfection just as the nature of perfection has always existed. This is the true descending energy of the divine and the cosmos coming into the collective to create the enlightened world, if you will, which will still take some time, but there's a lag effect to that. So my viewpoint on that now is that, you know, the condition of body mind has nothing to do with the nature of truth, the nature of realization. Now, if one has realized, the nature of purification will continue to occur until the body mind is at a place where, in essence, inwardly, all there is the bliss of the self. All there is that peace. And there still may be fluctuation, but it'll be almost like it's not even registered. And Nisargadatta spoke of this. It was like a mountain-like, unmovable peace, which, you know, it can't be spoken until it's experienced, right? So there's certain elements to that, but it's like coming back to the nature of knowing that the realization of truth, the abidance in the self, is the supreme energy healer. So whatever needs to be energy healed or physically healed or whatever, it will happen. And it will happen just by way of the complete surrender to just whatever is, it is what it is, right? So, but it's to know that there is certain needs of the human body-mind system that are more in alignment with the nature of where the collectives, that where it's all moving together. You know, so we're moving into lighter diets and things like this, but it doesn't mean eating a lighter diet is more enlightened. That doesn't mean that. It just means that's the nature of how relativity, if we want to, you know, point it to that, that's just the nature of its evolution. You see? So this is where we get out of the trap of any singular action or relative object being better or worse or making you more enlightened or less enlightened. It has nothing to do with it. It will be a reflection. It will be the nature of preference for one who's abiding in truth. It's like you'll prefer to maybe hug someone than kill them, right? So there's no complexity to that. It's just the nature of preference. But you know, there's two specific texts that outline that Genghis Khan was maximally enlightened, and that's a hard pill to swallow for many, but it is a perfect representation and example amongst the plethora of other examples of masters doing, you know, things that maybe sound immoral or whatever, but it really, from that vantage point, it doesn't matter. And more importantly, it's a reflection of one's karmic energy. It's a reflection of the karmic nature in which has unfolded for the time before and after the awakening. Okay? So again, great question. But it just, you know, coming into that recognition, it continues to just really relieve the pressure off your human experience and relieve the pressure of the perfection of the human experience and the need to manipulate details, right? We're looking at the greater picture. The details will handle themselves, right? If we're focused on the singular essence, that singular devotional love to life and to the source of the self, to know the self, to be the self, to be aware of the self. Okay, so again, if there's any question, I'll leave it open. I'll spell that book out. If you want to just go check out, my recent video on my top picks for books, it's there, and I'll have a bunch of others for you. Okay, if there's any other questions, then we'll, you know, throw them out. But I'll wrap it up here, and then our next session will be on Sunday, 2 p.m. Ramaji will be with us. If you haven't watched the interview, you can go watch it. If you have any specific questions, or you want to connect with me personally, then send me a message. But yeah, all is available for you. It's the time, my friends. Okay, much love. Have a beautiful evening. Check out those links and rewatch this if you feel called. Beautiful session. Thank you for being here and the questions. And yeah, we'll chat soon.